we got some words in our magazine parts today that we are going to come across. I just want to make sure you understand what they are. Our first one is PreColumbian. This is relating to America before Columbus came. Do you guys know who Columbus is?
Yeah,
Christopher Columbus. He is the person who is claimed with discovering America. Good. Do you know what year it said that he found America? Have you ever heard?
1750.
No. Have you? It is the 15th century, which, do you know what that means? It doesn't start with a 15, it starts with a 14. 15, like right now we are in the 21st century, but our number starts with 20. Like 2020, right? So the 15th century starts with 14. Have you never heard this saying before?
No.
Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. You guys have never heard that before?
Oh.
Whoa. All right, well, that's what he discovered in 1492. And what year are we in right now? 2020. So if we do some subtraction, let's see, 10 minus 2 is 8. Can't do that. 11 minus 9 is 2. 9 minus 4 is 3. 328.
9 minus 4 is 3. It's 5.
5. Thank you.
Wait, how old is
528 years ago, he found the land that America is on.
529.
Maddie, thank you.
These are before.
This is before that.
Somebody found it up before.
So somebody didn't find it. There were people here before. But Columbus didn't know that. All of Europe didn't know that there were people here before 1492. Okay? Kind of. The first people didn't find it. They were just here. They were just from there. All right. Next one is a status. That's your position of where you stand, like next to somebody. Like your status of power. Like I am above, right? I'm a teacher, so I'm a little bit higher than you. And you guys are all on the same status, right? You're the same level as each other.
Except for like AR and
But as student-wise, right? You're all students. All right, and then the last one is new to Mrs. Wells, too. That's called a potlatch. That is a traditional gathering of people from the Pacific Northwest. And when they do that gathering, they have a feast, and they dance, and they kind of give out gifts. So a potlatch, what's another word for a potlatch then?
party.
Like a party, yeah.
Where is that?
Okay.
I have no clue.
These are just my teacher words for us. All right, so I'm going to show my magazine. All right, we'll make it a little bigger. All right, so we are going to look on page 2 and 3. We're going to start with page 2 up here. Oh, my friend's over there. Can we get the light, actually? Thank you, Amelia. All right, page 2 and 3. So the first Americans, because remember we talked about this as pre-Columbus. So this is before it was even discovered by Europeans. Okay? And then after him, a lot of people came. So all of these people that we're going to read about were already in America. Do you know what we call people who were here originally?
American?
Native Americans. Yep, so this is like their great ancestors. Almost 600 years ago about. Okay? So we're going to learn about people who lived a long time ago. Do you think they lived differently or similar to us? Way differently? Do you think they did anything like we do? Nothing. They eat. Okay. This magazine is specifically going to talk about different Native American groups in North America. Okay? And we're going to talk about the way their lives were shaped by the geography, by the way the earth was, by the climate. Do you know what climate means?
Yeah, like weather.
Like the temperature, the weather, all that. And the natural resources that they had in their different environments. Okay? How would they adapt to local environments? Like, how would they adapt to living in Minnesota, do you think, if they lived here? What would they need to survive? What would they need? Rose?
They need food, they need water, they would need warm stuff for the winter.
Where would they get all this stuff? Isaac? Did you say it? No. I heard it, but I didn't see a hand with it. Aiden? They'd have to do a lot of hunting and gathering, right? They couldn't just go down to Target and be like, I need a warm winter coat, right? Okay, they didn't have Target. Okay. So, let's read about the first Americans up in the top. The first Americans. Holly, can you come up here with your magazine and read so that the speaker picks it up? Just bring your magazine up here. Just be a little closer so that I can hear you. All right.
The first Americans. The very first Americans were hunters who carried spears of bone and stone. They came from Asia following herds of giant buffalo and woolly mammoths. They tracked and killed those animals to survive. In North America, they found beavers and big as bears, but no jets roared through the skies, and no cars' horns honked. There were no town, cities, highways, or shopping malls. The forests were dense
Yep.
and untouched. It is said a squirrel could go hundreds of miles jumping from tree to tree without ever touching the ground. Over thousands of years, the first Americans developed many ways to live on the land. Some settled along the coasts, others came to live in forests, on plains, or in cliff houses high above deserts. Wherever they made their homes, they used the land's natural resources wisely. By 1492, most first Americans hunted and farmed for a living. In the Arctic, they hunted whales, seals, and caribou in other places.
Yep, it goes on the next page then.
They fished, gathered wild plants, and hunting animals such as buffalo, deer. They killed animals not for sport, but for food, shelter, and clothing.
Thank you, Holly. Can I have a volunteer read the last paragraph? Can you come on up, Adam? Bring your magazine.
Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas in 1492. Let's take a look at what life was like in North America. Just a short time before Columbus got here, we'll have to step back into what we call PreColumbian times, but more than 500 years ago to meet the first Americans. If you're ready to time travel, let's go.
All right. Let's come down to this part by the picture of that beaver. Did you catch how big beavers were? As big as bears. Could you imagine seeing a beaver that's bigger than you? All right. The first Americans. Amelia, thank you for following along. Can you come on up? Remember, I'm watching to see friends who are participating and staying along with us and not goofing off in their desks.
The first Americans lived in small groups. They were always moving, searching for game. Capturing large animals required skill and luck. Sometimes animals could be chased into swamps where they sank into mud and were trapped. Other times, an animal might be speared and wounded. Then the hunters tracked it until it died.
All right. The ground sloth. Let's go. Christian, can you come on up?
The ground sloth didn't eat meat. Instead, it used its front legs to pull leaves from trees for breakfast, lunch, and supper. This huge beast was over 18 feet long, over 3 times the weight of an average adult man. It also weighed 3 tons, about as much as 3 small cars. Its giant back legs and tail supported its huge body.
That is ginormous. All right, Ice Age Hunters. Zane, can you come read Ice Age Hunters? Brooke?
I actually want to say something.
Well, we're going to read through the whole magazine and we'll come back and talk, okay? So keep it in your head.
Ice Age hunters chipped away at the stone until it had a sharp edge. Then they pleated and smoothed a straight stick. They tied and sharpened the stone to one end and made a spear.
Why would they have to... Oh, we'll talk after. I just said that. We'll talk after. All right, down on the bottom about the woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoth. Isaac, can you come read about the woolly mammoth?
The woolly mammoth was 10-foot tall 4-ton elephant. It roamed in North America during the Ice Age. The imperial mammoth, which lived on the Great Plains, was even bigger. It measured over 13 feet tall. Mammoths had a long, shaggy outer coat and thick, woolly underparts. The fur kept them warm. Each mammoth's tooth was twice as big as a brick. Shiny tusks were ivory perfect.
Do you see the picture of the mammoth in the bottom?
Yes.
It reminds you, does it remind anybody of anything?
Ice Age.
I was thinking of Ice Age with Manny. All right, we got one last section about mini scientists. Brooke, can you come read mini scientists?
Okay. Actually, many, not many. Many scientists believe that first people came to North America about 12,000 years ago. They walked from Asia across a strip of land called a Bering Land Bridge. Others think people came by boats. Over time, people moved south, settling everywhere from Alaska to the tip of South America.
So if you look at that picture right there, do you see that Bering Land Bridge? Yeah. So they would come through that part. Or what did they do if they couldn't walk? If they didn't walk it, how do we think people got there? What do you think? Amelia, did you catch it? By boats, right? Why do we not know for sure? Why do we not know if they did walk or if they took boats? So why are we kind of guessing? Lily?
Oh, well, it was 12,000 years ago, so there's not going to be a person that's going to, keep saying it.
Right. And did they have schools back then, do you think?
No.
At least not like we do, right? So they didn't know how to, read and write. So could they write down their stories? No. Remember, we talked about with the Bible, how did stories get passed? By mouth. And what happens when we tell things by mouth?
They get mixed up.
Sometimes they get tweaked and changed a little bit, don't they? Kateri?
Can I read this out?
Sure. Come on up.
When the Ice Age ended, the land bridge connected Asia and North America disappeared. Do you know why? Do you know why the term Indian is sometimes used instead of Native American?
So let's think back to that first question. The Bering Land Bridge disappeared. Why would that disappear? Take a look. Think through that picture. Why could that land just disappear? All of that dark kind of brown. Why would it just disappear? Holly?
At least on some of the edges, because water.
Because the water would come in and kind of push it down, right? And if a lot of people walk over it, do you know what happens to rock or land that people walk over and over? It starts to wear away, right? Kind of a road. Okay. Now let's think about, do you know why Indian is sometimes used instead of Native American? Do you know why? Micah?
Was Indian the one they called before that Christopher Columbus came?
You're really close. So Christopher Columbus came to America, right, in 1492, but he went to India first, and he called those people Indians. And then when he came to the Americas, the name just kind of stuck. So sometimes people call Native Americans Indians because it goes back to Christopher Columbus where he first went in India. Exactly. That's impressive. But we want to call them do you know what native means? Like the word native? Do you know what it means, Ryan?
It'd be like the whole continent.
Not the whole continent. That's what the America part comes from. The whole continent of them, like our North America. Do you know what native, Isaac?
Like, they've been there a long time.
They started from there. It's their origin. Native is where you're from. Like you're a native English speaker. It's what you did first, right? So it's where they came from first. Good. All right. I got a couple questions really quick. When do scientists believe that the first people came to North America? There's a specific number of years. I'll give you a hint. It was a long time. When did people first come to America? Adam? 12,000 years. Did you find it right there? Yeah. It says it right there.
Yes.
Came to North America about 12,000 years ago. Good. When were the pre-Columbian years? Think through, what does that mean? What does pre-Columbian mean? We talked about that at the beginning. Pre-Columbian. Do you remember, Isaac? Think through, what does pre mean? Before what? Before Christopher Columbus. Holly? More than 500. Remember we found out that 528? So all those years before he came. Good. Why would the first groups of people, like we read about on these 2 pages, why would they move so often? Is it because they wanted to go have a brand new house somewhere else? No. Why would they need to move? They needed to move. Why would they need to? Lily?
Well, like if they didn't keep moving, then they wouldn't get anywhere. Because unless us we can drive, which gets us there like 2 times faster, they gotta walk.
Kind of. It took them a while, but why specifically would they need to move? Maddie?
One, because there's probably more food there, and 2, it might be cold there, and like we can't really survive without.
But specifically that no food, right? What would they follow so they knew where to go? They would follow foot tracks so that they could find animals to eat, find food. Yeah, they had to move because the animals didn't just stay in one place, right? They weren't fenced in. All right. Lily?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What was the top animal that they used to eat and the one that they used to make clothes?
Which one would get them a lot of fur to stay warm?
Woolly mammoth.
Woolly mammoths. The the beavers probably did too because they were pretty big beavers, right? But I think they would use kind of whatever animal that was around whenever they were hungry, right? Thomas?
Is that like a mammoth is extinct?
It is part of the reason why, because there were a few of them, but then they would kind of hunt them and they wouldn't keep track. They just thought they would keep being made, right? They didn't know that you need to have animals to make new animals, right? Cave people or like pre-Columbian people didn't have the schooling we did, so they don't know that, right? They're just kind of thinking like it's here. Do they ever waste parts of animals though?
No.
You know what's really cool about Native Americans? They use every single part of the animal. They use the tusks, the bones, the muscles, the fur. But for real, they use all of the parts for different things, whether it's for medicine or for like decor or for coats or for tools like to stir or to make stuff out of. They use every single part. Isn't that amazing? That is cool.
Like what is medicine and what's not.
I think a lot of trial and error. Brooke?
Remember when I wanted to say
Yep.
something about the ground sloth? Yeah, well, actually, the ground sloth was actually one of the types of lemurs that it was actually a type of lemur that's now extinct. It was like really rare and endangered. Yeah, people used to hunt it a lot because it was since it was like pretty big. Also, it was very
Yes, it probably was slow.
It's also the cousins of lemurs and normal sloths that we see.
Uh-huh. All right, let's look. We're going to read through 2 more pages today, and then we'll be done, okay? So we want page 4 and 5. This time, we're moving from the Arctic, that nice, cold, snowy place, to more water. Where specifically are we going? Can you figure? Where, Ryan? Which part of the ocean? Levi? The Pacific Northwest. Yep, we're going to do the sea people. All right. Can I have a volunteer come read just the first paragraph? Because it looks like this one's got 2. Levi, you want to come read the first part? All right.
In 1492.
A little louder.
In 1492, the
rivers?
rivers and oceans of the Pacific Northwest were filled with salmon,
Halibut?
and many other fish. Along the shore, people dug for clams and mussels. The area got lots of rain. Tall cedar trees grew in the forest, so did bushes full of tasty berries. Many people in the Pacific Northwest farmed, but they didn't need to grow crops. They could catch dinner with a hook and a net or a spear.
Awesome. All right. Next up, one group. Lizzie, can you come read?
One group of the Native Americans who lived in the Pacific Northwest was the Maka. They hunted whales, sea otters, and seals. Every spring, gray whales and fur seals swam by as they made their way north for the summer months. When the Maka saw the whales, they got ready for the hunt. The last whaling canoe was about to leave. Hop aboard for a ride.
All right, so we're time traveling back now. Now we're going to go hop on a canoe. Let's come down here to the Makas. We're going to talk about their canoes. Maddie, can you come read about the Maka canoes?
The Maka had canoe of all sizes. Some whaling canoes were 46 feet long and could hold a dozen or more men. War canoes can be even larger. The smallest canoes fit 1 person. They were used for river fishing and short trips at sea.
So if they're going to go for to go all the way across the world, would they use these little canoes? No, these were if they're going to go out for a day and try and get something. All right, let's come to the head whaler. Who do you think the head whaler is? Kind of like the captain. In the picture, can you point to who the head whaler you think is? Yeah, that big one right there with that big spear. Claire, can you come read about the head whaler?
The head whaler stands tall in the
Cedar
canal. He plunges his harpoon deep into the whale's side. Long ropes attached to the harpoon help the men follow the wounded whale. The whalers tow the dying whale to shore, where their families wait to welcome them home.
What is a harpoon? What word would you use to describe a harpoon? Ryan?
It's kind of like a really big spear that you can kill big animals.
A really big spear, right? And it had those ropes. Can you see the ropes in the picture? So that way if the whale swam down, what was still attached? The rope at least, right? As long as the harpoon stays inside the whale, right? And so they don't drop it, right? Because are whales small creatures?
No.
They're big, right?
They do like their feet.
Why would they want to hunt whales then? Why would they want to hunt whales? Micah? They can they get a lot of meat from one animal? They can, and then they can use the blubber to stay warm. Do you know what blubber is? It's like the fat part on the backs of whales. It's like that kind of rounded part. They use that to stay warm and for food too. They would use it to do a lot of cooking with. All right, let's read about the Maca sea hunters. Rose, can you come read Maca sea hunters?
Maca sea hunters depended on their harpoon. The tip of the harpoon had a sharp mussel shell blade. Harpoons also had two sharp blades made of elk bone or ant.
Remember we talked about like with the woolly mammoth? They were using other parts of animals like the elk bone and antlers. So they used different parts to make like weapons, like the harpoon. Because they didn't just have metal, right? They couldn't just go to like Home Depot and go buy a sheet of metal to make something. They had to use what they had. Let's come down and learn about where the macaws lived, where they lived. Lily, can you come read where they lived?
The macaw lived in 5 villages on the Pacific coast, in what is now Washington State. The biggest was Ozette, near the tip of the Olympic
Peninsula.
People lived in family groups. Families
differed
in status or importance. There were royal families and common families. Each family had a leader. The most powerful of the family leaders acted as chief. Within the family, each person was also ranked by importance. There were rules about how people of different ranks could behave.
Good. So, which color is like the part on the map where the macaws live?
Just a couple minutes,
yes.
Really quick. Fourth graders, I need your help with something. The last week and this week in the girls.
We are coming back into our magazine. Interruption. All right. So looking at the map, where are the macaw people? What color are they on that map? What color? Aiden? They're that little purple strip up and down the coast. Do you see it? Do they take up a lot of land? No. And they like to move up and down. Why would they move up and down instead of like in and out on the map? Why are they moving up and down? Why does that make sense? Holly?
Because like the water's on
the water's on the side.
If they go like in, then there's like not like the ocean, and
right.
You can't really catch this big.
You can't catch like whales over here in the middle of the United States, can you? No. So they want to travel along where the water is. Isaac?
When you like in and out, they like hard to like move like through the different areas to like get stuff. Because if they just go in one area, other fish know not to go there.
Yeah, fish gonna catch on, right? If they keep getting caught in an area, are fish gonna return there? No, they're going to keep moving, okay? So they got to move, like we talked about before, with the animals. Where the animals are moving, these people need to move. All right, let's come over here and talk about, by that box, what the macaw found. Eden, you want to come read? You haven't read yet.
This one?
Yep.
The macaw found many uses for the cedar trees from nearby forests. They made wood into fish hooks, boxes, bowls, and canoe paddles. Canoes were also carved from cedar trees. Women wore strips of bark into skirts, blankets, baskets, mats, and ropes.
They would use trees to make clothes even. Isn't that crazy? I don't know, but could you imagine wearing a tree skirt? That wouldn't be very comfy, would it, girls?
No.
All right, let's read up by the whales, the macaw, and Micah, you haven't read yet. Can you come on up?
The macaw didn't just eat the whale's meat and throw the rest away. The macaw turned the whalebone into tools of all kinds. They used the whale tendons and tissues to make fishing line. They even made containers from whale intestines, whale oil, burned for light, and also very valuable to trade.
Right, like we talked about there again, they're still using every single resource. All right, let's come over by, it looks almost like a basket, doesn't it? up there. Nathan, can you come read?
Would you like to go to a party where everyone came home with a great gift? A
potlatch.
A potlatch was a big feast that marked a special event, such as a wedding, dressed in fancy robes like this one. The host gave his guests fine blankets, carved boxes, and even canoes. The most important guests got the best gifts. His generosity showed his wealth and social standing.
Good. So the people who are throwing those potlatches, remember we talked about, I think Lily read how they had the different like status, the different like family levels. Where would these people be? Would they be more like the royalty or down on the bottom? They'd be like in the royalty, right? They'd be in the upper level of society to be able to have the parties. Yeah, it's a little blurry. All right, we got one last section to read. Underneath, I think that's a seal, huh?
Yeah.
Amelia, you want to come read about the seal?
The Macon made sealskin and seal fur into warm clothing. Whale and sea oil were just as important as the skin and meat. Villagers dipped dry meat into seal oil before eating it. They also stored berries in seal oil to keep them fresh longer. Whale oil and seal oil were burned to create light. The Maka had always taken only what they needed in the 1800s.
Hundreds, yep.
White hunters killed so many fur seals that the seals almost died out.
Why would they kill so many seals?
They have fur and
They had really valuable stuff, didn't they? But because they killed so many of them, what almost happened? They almost went extinct, didn't they?
Are the seals like that we have? Do they have fur?
They do. Their fur it doesn't look like fur because they're in water so much, right? It kind of looks like a polished skin, but they have a little bit of fur on there, but it's so wet usually that it looks like it's just kind of blended in. Yeah. All right. What type of tree was the most useful? They used a very specific tree. Adam? Cedar. What color is cedar wood, do you think?
Orange.
Kind of like that red, orange a little bit, like the box in the middle. How did hosts of potlatch show their wealth and generosity to their guests? How did they show that? Maddie? They gave them gifts. Who would have liked to go home with a sweet basket like that? Wouldn't that be cool to get? And last question. They used canoes. What were they for? Why did the Makah people use canoes? Zane?
So they can kill sea animals and get resources.
So they could go off and get resources from the ocean, and they could get like sea animals. Like what was the one that they hunted, and they needed a lot of people in a big canoe for? Lizzie?
They needed it was 46 feet long.
46 feet long canoe. And what did they use to get that animal? Do you remember the name of that weapon? Did you catch it, Micah? The harpoon was used to get what kind of animal? What kind of animal, Ryan? Whales. How many of you would like to go visit the Makahs and be with them? Yeah? How many of you would like to go back with the first Americans and be in like the Arctic? You'd rather be there? All right. That is all we have for social studies today.